Hey there, Paul David Thompson coming at you and answering the question how to get started in real estate with little to no money. I know what it's like. You don't have a lot of money. You don't. Maybe you have no money. How are you supposed to make this real estate thing work? These properties have great value. They're very expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. How are you supposed to make that work? This is the video for you. All right, I'm breaking down how to get started in real estate into 4 big categories. These are basic techniques. I'm going to go through each one of them in detail and explain to you how to go about getting started when you don't have much to start with. I relate. I didn't have $1 million sitting in a bank account when I got started, so I used these techniques in order to buy properties. And I bought 18 houses doing these very things within the first 18 months of getting started. And from there, I have just ramped up. So let's just dig right into them and get started. But first off, the first one is creative financing. And so by creative financing, I mean is using financing that you don't have to get qualified. Your credit is not good enough, so you use someone else's financing. You use some sort of creative financing technique. And the first one that I like to use the most is owner financing, OF. Owner financing. It's when you acquire a property and you agree to make the seller, the one who's selling it to you, the owner who is selling you the property, payments over time. And I'll leave a link to a video that goes into that in much more detail. So I'm not going to cover each of these in great detail. I'm going to cover the types of ways you can do it, and then I'll have a couple of videos for you to go and learn more about. So next is sub to. So this is when you buy sub to the existing mortgage. It is a often lauded technique to buy properties when you don't have a lot of money. And it is true. I have done this with properties where I have bought properties subject to the existing mortgage. But make sure and watch the video that I talk about. I have a whole series on sub-2 on the different ways to process it and different ways to think about it. It is not an overnight get-rich-quick scheme the way some people tout it to be. It's a great technique. Use it appropriately. All right, next in this category of creative financing, you can do what they call a wraparound mortgage. And this is when the seller has an existing mortgage on the property and you take another mortgage and wrap it around there. I'll have another video on exactly what a wraparound mortgage and the different ways that you can do it. It can take a little bit of a minute to process what it means and kind of wrap your head around what a wraparound mortgage is, but it is one of the best techniques to understand because most people step over deals not realizing that they can do a wraparound mortgage. And then lastly, in this category of creative financing, is referred to private money loan. Private money loan. So this is when you borrow money from somebody else. Not a bank, not a hard money lender, not some institution, but a private individual for which you have some sort of relationship with and they agree to lend you money. So in this case, these situations, you are basically using debt partners. So the seller, the existing mortgage that's in place in these two cases, or a third party private individual, they become your debt partner, and you control the deal because you know how to manage the debt and you get access to debt that you don't personally have to qualify for. In this case, you're using a relationship. In these two cases, you're using an institutional debt that's underlying it or some sort of existing mortgage that's in place. Or in this case, you're using the seller and using their equity and they're selling it to you over time. Okay, the next quadrant here, so to speak, is joint venture. And this is a very common way that when you get started, you don't have money, you don't have credit. So what you do is you find somebody else to partner with and they use their credit or they use their money to do a deal with you. In this case, you are becoming partners in a deal and you own and control and manage the deal together. So we can think of this as a money partner, where they bring the money in and you don't have to qualify with a bank in this case because they are a private individual in most cases and they're coming in and they're going to do a deal with you. And so another way to think of this is just splitting the deal. You take a deal and you split it up. And I know a lot of people are really reluctant to split the deal because they want 100% of everything in it. But I really think that people are short-sighted and don't realize that it's better to have 50% of a good deal than 100% of a deal that you can't do because you don't have access to the capital, you don't have access to credit. And you can also think of this as being an equity partner. Kind of all different ways of saying the same thing, and there is some overlap. So you could use any of these financing techniques and also have a partner. And so that's why there's a bit of an overlap here, that these aren't exclusive to one another. You could have a private money partner that lends you the money for a bit of the debt, and they lend you money, and then they also on the back end might share some of the equity. They might get a bit of the upside, is what it's kind of referred to as. So there's a lot of different ways to structure this. This is the two quadrants that are called creative financing and joint venture. They often intersect. Now the third one is basically controlling the property with a lease. So in these cases up here, you're actually taking title to the property, and you own the property and you run the deal. And I consider these top two ones up here like actually investing, and you're holding an asset and you're acquiring it. But then there's also techniques where you don't technically, in my book, invest, but you are still running a business that is profitable. So in this case, you can lease a property. So what's to keep you from leasing a property and asking the owner if they wouldn't mind allowing you to sublet it to somebody else, and you effectively control the property? It's almost like in fact, it is property management, but you can legally do that if you hold the lease on the property. You have equitable interest in the property, and you can now sublet it. It's done in the commercial space a ton, but it can also be done with single family apartments, however you want to do it. So with a lease, what you're doing here is you're basically taking control of the property and perhaps subletting it. So that's referred to as master leasing, where you are leasing a property from an owner, and then you are finding another tenant and subletting it. And you can just do long-term rentals that way if you want to. You could also do vacation rentals. And there's a lot of interest in vacation rentals right now. There's a lot of people that are teaching how to acquire a property and then turn around and sublet it. And by acquiring it, they mean getting a lease on the property and then turn around and subletting. And the reason this is so valuable when you don't have a lot of money is that it doesn't really cost you anything to get a lease, because it's a performance lease. You agree with the seller that you're going to be running an Airbnb out of this house, so this property, and then you're not obligated to pay them anything until you actually get a tenant and start making money. And so you basically get a percentage of the deal. You may pay them $1,000 a month for the rent, and then you might get $2,000 of gross income from your Airbnb. And after expenses and whatnot, you might net the difference of, say, $500 after expenses. So that's a way of starting to earn income by controlling the property and using your time and energy to do something that the owner may not want to do. And that is one of this approach can work in nearly any market, and it is a great opportunity that I don't know a lot of people are aware of, that you can do this. And lastly, we'll talk about flipping deals. And so this is what I would refer to as controlling the deal and then selling your interest in the deal. So it's often referred to as wholesaling. You can do that on contracts, which is like purchase and sale contracts. You can basically flip the contract. You can actually flip leases, lease options, lease options. It's called wholesaling lease options. You can even flip notes. Basically, the underlying strategy that you're doing here is you're getting access to a deal that somebody is willing to sell at a discount, and then you take that interest, that contract interest, and then you take it to a third party and sell it for a premium. So you're basically flipping markets. You're going from wholesale and you're selling at retail, which is why the word wholesaling is often used when it comes to contract assignment. So because what you're doing is you're finding a discounted property, a discounted deal, and then taking it to a different auction house and selling it at a higher price. Effectively, you're switching markets. It's the same thing Walmart does, but they do it at scale. They buy at wholesale prices and they sell to us at retail prices. And we're happy to do that because we pay for one or two items at a time. We don't have the capacity to go and buy 1 million rolls of toilet paper every hour. We only need so much of these basic items. Well, in the retail space or in the real estate investing space, you can do this with an individual property because you went out there and searched for the discount. You found somebody who had distress, and you were able to get a good deal on because you were able to negotiate. And that's what you're doing, is you're playing two different markets. And you don't need a lot of money to do that. You can do that just simply by hustling. But the big catch with the flipping the deals is that you need a lot of knowledge. You need to know a lot about all of these pieces so that you can find the right market. But I will give you a big warning here on wholesaling. It is very much akin to being a licensed agent. So if you are not a licensed agent and you're doing wholesaling activities, you are basically skirting and towing the line as to whether or not you're acting as an agent without a license. So understand the local state laws of your jurisdiction and be careful. I have a video right here that I'll post where I go into how to wholesale correctly, and I talk about a lot of the caveats that a lot of the gurus do not talk about because they're trying to sell a course or do whatever, which is all fine and good, but they're not talking about the underlying risks of the law as much as I think they should. All right, here I've covered 4 different ways that you can approach going into the marketplace and using your mental acumen, your intellectual capital, your network in order to find deals. So what's interesting is I really encourage people to go in this order: 1, 2, 3, 4. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people go in the reverse order. They start with wholesaling first because that's what is touted as being this great way of doing it. But I think there's a lot of risk in it, and there's a lot of pressure right now on wholesaling as to whether or not it's legal, and the markets there's a lot of competition coming in now for the small-time wholesalers, becoming harder for them to accomplish this. But there's not anything in place that is keeping you from legally doing all these, even leasing these. And so if you can't find a deal and do owner financing, and you don't have the capacity to control the deal yourself, then find a partner so that you can control the deal together, make money together. And if you can't find that, then why not go and find an owner that is willing to lease their property, and you can run an Airbnb business. That's very important. This bottom side, this bottom half here, the quadrant 3 and 4, are much more on the business side of things. Whereas up here, you're acting more as an investor. And you really want to get to the place where you're acting as an investor instead of just running a business. There's nothing wrong with a business, but a business is not a way to make money while you sleep. Think about the long term. You do these things in order to get up to here. And once you get up to here, you're acting as a real full-time investor, that you have control of your life, control of your time in a way that you don't down here, unless you're able to build this business in a way that you can sell it or have somebody else do it for you, which is certainly viable, but then you're acting as an investor. You're stepping out of the business, and now the business runs without you. This is how you should be thinking about building your lifestyle around the knowledge it takes to do these. This is Paul David Thompson. I have a podcast called Ready Investor One, and I have more videos coming soon. Put a comment down below. Which one of these are you doing, and where are you stuck? I will make more videos on how to put these things in place so that you can lead a life of your own design. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, make sure and give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you can watch future videos, and make sure and hit the notification button so you can get notified when new videos are posted. And right now I have additional videos for you right here.